Allow me to introduce a paradox regarding silence in our hyper-connected digital age. We inhabit a landscape where nearly every facet of life is broadcast, from mundane coffee cups and vibrant sunsets to celebratory birthdays, expressions of grief and even pain meticulously styled with a filter. Despite this pervasive culture of sharing, a certain segment of the population remains profoundly invisible. They are the quiet observers, scrolling meticulously and taking everything in, yet they post rarely, if at all. You likely know one of these individuals, or perhaps you embody this quiet presence yourself. This pattern invariably leads to the same persistent query. Why? Why deliberately choose to remain unseen when the entire global community seems desperate for the spotlight? While it's tempting to dismiss non-posters as merely shy or inherently introverted, that explanation fails to capture the full complexity. Underlying this deliberate absence is an intricate psychological framework, a worldview that offers deep insights into human nature, self-perception, and represents a subtle yet profound resistance against a culture that fetishizes visibility. For these individuals, silence is far from being a void. It is, in fact, mastery. It is the empowering choice to dictate precisely what aspects of their lives the world will never be privy to. We must acknowledge that social media platforms have subtly but fundamentally redefined how we construct our identities. The system inherently rewards outward display and elevates the loudest voices. Paradoxically, the people who intentionally remain in the shadows frequently possess the sharpest clarity of vision. They observe without the compulsion to intervene, deliberate deeply before responding, and engage in thoughtful analysis long before passing judgment. Psychological research has yielded a fascinating correlation. Individuals who rarely engage in frequent posting often demonstrate significantly higher scores in areas such as self-restraint, deep introspection, and emotional independence. They are generally less susceptible to the traps of social comparison and the dependency on external validation. Put simply, their efforts are not dedicated to proving their identity to others, but rather to authentically understanding it themselves. In an age saturated with calculated performances, this level of grounded self-focus is truly exceptional. Let us face the truth. A vast majority of our digital output transcends mere communication. It constitutes meticulous identity crafting. It functions as a subconscious audition designed to secure belonging. Each meticulously chosen caption, photograph, and status update silently poses the same fundamental question. This is my presentation of self. Do I meet your approval? However, when the act of posting ceases, a fundamental shift occurs. One begins to actively decouple personal self-worth from the volatile supply of digital applause. You stop mentally framing your life in ready-made captions. Instead, you start genuinely experiencing moments solely for yourself, rather than filtering them through the performative requirement of a lens. And this then reveals the hidden psychological drive of many who remain silent, a profound yearning for authenticity within a digital environment where everything feels carefully curated and staged. They harbor no animosity toward the platforms themselves. They simply find that the platforms no longer reflect their true selves. It is not an anti-technology stance or a sign of antisocial behavior. Rather, it is a deliberate refusal to compress the rich complexity of their lives solely into a collection of palatable highlights. Once an individual recognizes how effortlessly perception can be manufactured and manipulated, they invariably begin to place a higher value on the things that resist being posted: genuine silence, emotional depth, true imperfection, and unvarnished truth. For some, the choice to stop posting arises from a type of profound emotional burnout. Perhaps they were once dedicated sharers until the practice felt profoundly unreal. They came to recognize that every time a beautiful moment was broadcast, it was accompanied by an invisible, escalating pressure to constantly outdo the previous highlight. They were no longer inhabiting their lives, they were merely executing a prolonged performance. Consequently, they withdrew discreetly. There was no grand exit announcement, just a slow, almost unnoticed fade from the digital stream. Yet, a fundamental point is often missed. Not posting is not synonymous with not feeling. It does not imply apathy. More often, it suggests an intense commitment. They care deeply about genuine presence, profound meaning, and rigorously protecting what they deem sacred. Psychology defines this phenomenon as psychological ownership, the deep internal conviction that an experience, a memory, or a thought belongs uniquely and entirely to you. When this is posted, that potent sense of private ownership subtly diminishes. The moment transforms into shared public property, instantly susceptible to external judgment, misinterpretation, or even ridicule. Thus, those who abstain from sharing are frequently engaged in safeguarding their profound sense of ownership over their own existence. They preserve their most significant moments as untouchable, private, and pure. And perhaps this behavior is not indicative of sadness or social withdrawal. It might be, in its truest form, a quiet declaration of freedom. Consider this: when was the last occasion you undertook a truly meaningful action and successfully resisted the impulse to share it? When did you laugh, shed tears, or achieve a personal milestone without the immediate reflexive thought of broadcasting it online? This powerful reflex, this compelling need for display, is not innate. It is profoundly conditioned. It is the direct result of years spent navigating likes, shares, and dopamine loops that have effectively trained our brains to erroneously equate external validation with intrinsic value. When an individual consciously steps outside of this deeply entrenched system, it can feel like a genuine act of rebellion. Crucially, it is also a process of healing. They begin to reclaim the simple pleasure of engaging in activities solely for their own satisfaction. Cooking an elaborate meal without documenting the process, experiencing travel without attaching geographical tags, and feeling emotions without the necessity of explanation. Within this unshared space, a powerful form of self-awareness blossoms, one that requires no external audience to confirm its existence. However, it is important to note that not every person who refrains from posting operates from a place of inner peace. Some are motivated by fear, the anxiety of being judged, the sting of rejection, or the painful potential for profound misunderstanding. Social media has significantly magnified a subtle, pervasive anxiety psychologists identify as self-presentational pressure. This is the exhausting, constant mental burden of feeling watched, even in the privacy of your own home. For many, this is debilitating. They fret that their words will be misinterpreted, or perhaps worse, entirely overlooked. Consequently, they withdraw. This retreat is not born of a desire to avoid connection, but rather a conclusion that the emotional cost of visibility is simply too exorbitant. They desire to be seen, but only authentically, not just through a superficial lens. And perhaps most ironically, the most silently present people online often harbor the most intense internal monologues. They are not empty or absent, they are internally overflowing. They simply elect for stillness over digital spectacle. There's a deep philosophical resonance embedded within that choice of silence. In a global environment that perpetually screams, "Look at me," the choice of invisibility transforms into a potent act of self-definition. It makes a powerful statement: I exist beyond your immediate perception. They may scroll through the lives of others, nodding, smiling, occasionally feeling a pang of sorrow, but they seldom project their own reality because they grasp a truth most have forgotten. Not every meaningful human experience is intended for public consumption. Often the most profound occurrences in life, personal growth, the processing of grief, fundamental transformation, take place in quiet solitude, unseen and unposted. After navigating enough of these crucial private transformations, one begins to understand that being unseen is entirely distinct from being insignificant. In fact, privacy is precisely where authentic identity is formed, not merely performed. This highlights the core paradox. Social media was engineered with the intent to connect us, yet it frequently leaves its users feeling profoundly isolated. When you eliminate the pressure to post, you cease the relentless pursuit of digital closeness and actively start cultivating authentic, real-world relationships. You notice which people genuinely check in on you without being prompted by constant updates. You discover who remembers you without needing digital reminders. That quality of connection, raw, deeply personal, and never broadcasted, feels substantially heavier, warmer, and possesses an infinitely greater sense of reality. The people who opt for silence online reside in this intentional space. They forge bonds that require no photographic proof of their existence, find solace in moments left entirely unshared, and permit their lives to unfold organically, without the constant need to convert experience into publishable content. A significant component of this choice relates to identity security, possessing an unshakable knowledge of who you are, even in total solitude. When one is truly comfortable in their own company, the need for an external audience to validate one's self-worth simply evaporates. This isn't vanity or arrogance, it is pure foundational peace. And, quite ironically, the individuals who maintain this digital silence are often the ones carrying the richest, most compelling stories. They reserve these narratives for genuine interaction, for when you are sitting across a physical table, not separated by a glowing screen. For them, true connection is never quantified by comments or likes. It resides in comfortable shared silence, in the weight of eyes meeting across a room, and in laughter that requires no witnesses to confirm its joy. These are the quiet giants, people who carry complex inner worlds, process information with immense depth, observe tirelessly, and understand things without requiring verbal confirmation. They do not necessitate the world's applause to affirm their existence. They simply require the space to live it fully. And perhaps in a society so profoundly desperate for visibility, their strategic silence is not a deficiency. It functions as a mirror, gently reflecting the truth that not everything of consequence must be shared, and that sometimes the most profoundly human act is to fiercely guard something purely and completely for oneself. Here is another fascinating insight. The extended absence from social media often fundamentally alters an individual's perception of the world. Colors appear more saturated, time seems to stretch slower, and conversations possess a newfound depth. It is as though actively withdrawing from the perpetual digital noise restores the inherent reality of things. When the performance stops, genuine experience begins. There is an undeniable, quiet beauty in navigating life without the psychological need to capture proof of every single step. You are liberated from worrying about the optimal angle, the perfect lighting, or the witty caption. You are simply there, completely alive, situated entirely inside the moment, rather than detached and observing from the outside. This level of total presence is something social media rarely permits us to attain. Yet, the underlying psychology transcends mere personal preference or taste. It is deeply rooted in the neurological mechanisms by which our brains process affirmation. Each time we share something online and receive attention, likes, comments, heart emojis, our brain registers a release of dopamine, the very neurotransmitter associated with reward and addictive cycles. Over time, we develop a powerful craving for this instant validation, conditioning us to prioritize shareable experiences over genuinely felt ones. Now, consider the person who actively resists this loop, someone who consciously chooses to decouple from this powerful dopamine cycle. This is not casual disinterest, it is profound discipline. It demands significant self-awareness to successfully resist a system meticulously engineered for perpetual engagement. Individuals who choose not to post typically exhibit a strong internal locus of control. This psychological concept implies that their core sense of self-worth and happiness is derived internally, rather than being dependent on external approval. They simply do not require a digital echo confirming you are enough in order to believe it. Furthermore, studies consistently reveal something compelling. People who engage in extended breaks from posting or consuming social media content frequently report a measurable uptick in emotional stability and overall life satisfaction. This occurs because when your fundamental sense of identity is no longer subject to constant external mirroring, it solidifies. It becomes intrinsically real. You cease the exhausting process of editing your complex life into a perfectly digestible format. You begin living it in all its messy, beautiful, and unfiltered truth. Perhaps then, the ultimate act of modern rebellion is simply maintaining one's wholeness in a world that endlessly rewards fragmentation. It is crucial to acknowledge that online silence is not always synonymous with deep serenity. Occasionally, it masks profound exhaustion. For many users, social media platforms started as a venue for genuine connection, but ultimately became emotionally draining. There is a specific, subtle fatigue derived from endlessly viewing everyone else's meticulously polished highlight reels, while attempting to navigate the chaotic behind the scenes of your own reality. You inevitably begin comparing, even subconsciously. You start questioning your intrinsic worth, even when your rational mind knows better. Eventually, some people make the necessary decision to step away, motivated not by bitterness, but by an urgent need for self-preservation. They arrive at the understanding that they owe the world no continuous performance. They are not obliged to explain their resulting silence, and critically, they no longer feel the need to perpetually prove their happiness just to be deemed credible. This highlights one of the generation's silent realities. We've disastrously conflated visibility with inherent value. We operate under the assumption that, in order to matter, we must be acknowledged. Yet, true meaning requires no audience. The most formative, life-shaping moments you will ever experience will occur without a single witness present. No cameras rolling, no captions needed, no audience, just you. Perhaps this is the key insight held by those who choose not to post. They recognize that privacy is not equivalent to loneliness. It is rather profound intimacy with the self. When you cease broadcasting every fleeting thought, you finally regain the ability to hear your own voice clearly. You reconnect with the fundamental parts of yourself that were drowned out by the noise. Your quiet desires, your unspoken anxieties, your true inner compass. In the context of the modern world, this is a profoundly spiritual experience. It is not a retreat from the world. It is a homecoming to the self. Naturally, this journey is not uniformly peaceful. There are inevitable moments of doubt, where one questions if silence truly equates to invisibility, or if they are lagging behind while everyone else seems to be performing relentless progress. But over time, a beautiful realization takes root. Your intrinsic worth does not vanish simply because no one is watching. It remains steady and unshakable, like the resonant hum of a quiet room following a thunderstorm. And perhaps this stability defines authentic confidence. Not the loud, performative declaration of self online, but the deeply calm, certain assurance of self maintained offline. The common cynical question asks, if you didn't post it, did it even happen? Yet, the humbling truth is that the experiences that shape us most fundamentally are precisely those that rarely surface on the feed. Your deepest personal growth, your heartbreaks, your hard-won private victories, and your anonymous acts of kindness exist solely within memory, not media. And perhaps that internal validation is sufficient. When psychologists discuss authentic self-expression, they stress the importance of congruence, the genuine alignment between one's internal self and the identity presented externally. In the era of digital filters, however, that crucial alignment is constantly being warped. One begins to inhabit a version of the self meticulously curated purely for external approval. Therefore, when someone elects not to post, it can be viewed as their powerful means of maintaining congruence, protecting that fragile, essential truth connecting their inner and outer realities. They do not require universal visibility of their feelings to validate their reality, nor do they need to photograph every majestic sunset to retain the memory of its beauty. They choose to live their life fully and quietly. And here we find another paradox. Those who lead outwardly quiet lives often experience life with the greatest intensity. They are entirely undistracted by the necessity of performance. They absorb nuanced details that the perpetually busy overlook, the subtle shifting of light on an ordinary wall, the pregnant pause before a meaningful statement, the faint echo of laughter carried from afar. They are fundamentally present, and presence in a culture constructed entirely upon the economics of attention is the most valuable and rare currency available. Yet, this very deep presence can lead to misunderstanding. Others might incorrectly categorize them as detached, overly mysterious, or even cold. However, upon closer inspection, their silence reveals not emptiness, but profound depth. It is the calm born from the liberation of no longer needing to perpetually explain oneself in order to be understood. There is a powerful, quiet confidence that stems from accepting that you don't need to be known by everyone, only truly understood by a select few. And this is the core knowledge possessed by those who remain silent online. They grasp that not every personal truth is suitable for the masses. They recognize that certain facets of the self deserve to remain pristine, untouched by algorithmic analysis and public opinion. Once something is made public, it loses its exclusive ownership. It becomes subject to interpretation, open to harsh judgment, and vulnerable to fleeting trend cycles. Perhaps some personal moments are simply too sacred to risk this exposure. So the next time you encounter someone who never posts, Resist the assumption that they are merely hiding. Perhaps they are simply actively living. Perhaps they have located profound peace within the quiet corners of their existence, those spaces not illuminated by the demanding blue light of a screen. Perhaps they are the very people who have retained a memory the rest of us have lost. That being unseen is not synonymous with being alone. That being quiet does not mean being empty. And that sometimes the most authentic expression of who you are is silence itself. Because ultimately, we were not created to be performances. We were meant to be people. And the people who don't post offer us a powerful, recurring reminder of this truth, with every quiet, unfiltered, beautifully invisible moment they choose to keep.